Hey everyone, welcome to the Hobby Grotto. Today I've got a couple of tips on how to get the most out of your Warhammer paint. Let's have a look. Now, one of the first issues that people will talk about when it comes to Warhammer paint is the paint pot itself. Of course, you could transfer your paints to dropper bottles, but that's not what this video is about, and they have their own set of issues too. If you're using the GW pots, you'll find sometimes you get paint buildup here. This mainly comes from having the pots open too long and the paint running down the back, so use a palette and keep your paints closed. If you get too much buildup, the lid won't close properly and then your paint can dry out, so try this trick. Remove the whole lid and flip it inside out. It takes a bit of force. All that dry paint will flake off easily, enabling you to close your paint once more. This can be messy, so watch out for any paint flicking off the lid, particularly onto your freshly painted miniatures. I think by far one of the best things you can ever do is add mixing balls to your paint. It's so simple yet so effective. The very first thing I do when I get a new paint is pop one in there, and I recommend this for all acrylic paint, not just paint made by GW. I use army painter mixing balls, and in many years of use, I've never had an issue with them. The main thing is you don't want something that will rust, so don't cheap out. I also combine this with a vortex mixer, which, while definitely not a mandatory piece of kit, is incredibly useful. I love my vortex mixer, honestly. I got this one a couple of years ago now, and it really makes life easier. Highly recommend. Even if you keep on top of it, all paint dries out. It's just a part of life. But when I discover a paint on the thick side, I add two things in equal parts. The first is thinner medium. Any brand is fine as long as it's for acrylic paint. The second thing is good old-fashioned water. I often just use tap water, but you can also use distilled water, which I read somewhere was the best water to use with paint, so you might want to check that one out. This stuff is super cheap from the grocery store. When adding these two mediums to dried out paint, I always add it in equal parts and start with just a couple of drops so it doesn't go overboard. Citadel paint has a strong pigment generally, so it can take some watering down, but you don't want to go too far with this and ruin your paint, so just start off slow. Still to this day, the wet palette remains one of the best tools to get the most out of your Warhammer paint, or any acrylic paint for that matter. It's going to keep your paint hydrated and you don't need some expensive thing. I make mine with a Ferrero Rocher box. Clean it out, put down some paper towel, and then I have a bunch of sheets I've pre-cut. This is just baking paper from the supermarket. Add some water and you're good to go. Not only does the wet palette enable you to use less paint, because it saves your paint more, but it also keeps the paint hydrated, as I mentioned, on the palette, and it's easier for mixing. It's just generally a great tool for any kind of painting. So there you go everyone, a couple of tips to get the most out of your Warhammer paint. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on the Hobby Grotto.